Well, greetings and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is episode 37 of Karl's Spirits. And tonight, we're tasting Old Forester Signature 100 Proof. This is Old Forester's Signature 100 Proof. Guys, Old Forester has been around a very long time. They are currently in their 150th year of production. So, this is a very storied name in bourbon, Old Forester. It was originally produced by a gentleman by the name of James Garvin Brown in the 1800s. He named it Old Forester. He liked the name Forester better than he liked Brown. Forester was a doctor that actually had a office right next door to Brown's office. He asked Dr. Forester if he could use his name. The gentleman said yes, with the stipulation that he get free bourbon. Not a bad deal, right? And Old Forester was born as a result. And it is the longest continuous bourbon distillery in the country owned by the same family. The Brown family still has the controlling interest of Old Forester. The company is actually called Brown Forman. So it's kind of a neat little deal that these people have hung on to their family legacy for over 150 years. The other unique thing that James Garvin Brown did with his brand Old Forester is he put it in bottles, and he was one of the first. He was the first to bottle his bourbon. At this time, when you went to buy bourbon, you bought a barrel, and then you bottled it for distribution. So a store, a restaurant, if you will, would purchase a barrel, and then they could put it in a bottle, and then that's what they would sell. However, this was in an age where they adulterated the bourbons a lot. They put everything into them, including water, tobacco juice, gasoline, oil, lots and lots of nasty stuff went into the bourbon. Brown began to do this. He began to bottle his bourbon as a mark of quality. And so he sold it already pre-bottled, and he sold it with a strip of paper with his signature on it that went over the top. So you knew that if you bought that bottle, it had his stamp of approval on it that this was a quality product. So this was quality assurance long before there was any such thing. And that's why this is still called today the signature drink, the 100 proof. And for many years, Old Forester was in kind of a limbo. It was acknowledged as a decent bourbon, but no one was really that excited about it. Brown Forman didn't push it particularly hard. They were pushing their other acquisitions a little harder, things like Woodford Reserve, for example. But this began to change in the past, 10 to 12 years. During that time, they've introduced a whole new series of bourbons. They call their Whiskey Row series, and I've previewed and tasted a couple of those for you previously. They also have a birthday bourbon that is highly sought after. It is released annually and limited release each year on the birthday of Mr. Garvin Brown. The other thing I always like to point out here is that in the past 12 years, the product coming out of Old Forester has been the result of a master distiller by the name of Mary Ann Barnes. She's since moved on to another distillery, but their new master taster is Jackie Zykan. So, salute to the ladies for quality bourbon. So, aside from their Whiskey Row series and their birthday bourbon, there are two budget price bourbons in their lineup. There's an 86 proof, and there is what they call the signature 100 proof, and that's what we're looking at this evening. The mash bill for this, pretty standard mash bill, 72% corn, 18% rye. Some distilleries call that a high rye, but we've seen others where 29 and 30% rye were very common. 10% malted barley. There is no age statement on this, likely around the 4-year mark, though. And it is bottled at 100 proof. Now, it is not a bottled in bond, but it is just simply bottled at 100 proof. In the glass, this is a nice dark amber color. It's got some really cool legs. I think that's that 100 proof mark, really speaking right there. It looks really, really good in the glass. Now, I'm going to be really honest as we get into the tasting portion here. I've been chasing this one for the past hour or so. And what I mean by that is it's kind of a chameleon. So my first sip didn't tell me what the second sip should be. It was totally different. That's on the nose, that's on the taste. The finishes remain fairly constant, but the nose and the taste have been chameleons. They've been changing as it has set in the glass and it's really opened up. So when I first nosed this, very first time I did, I got a lot of sweetness, a lot of brown sugars. I got like typical caramel flavor. But I also got cherry, and I would call this. I don't want to sound off-putting, but almost a medicinal cherry, like a cough syrup cherry smell. And it's attractive. It's not terrible. Um, Now, as it's set in the glass, more oaky, woodsy notes began to appear. I began to get the smell of sawn lumber and those oak notes of caramel, and even a little toasted oak in there as well. So again, it's a chameleon; it changes. So on the taste, what has remained constant is the mouthfeel. It's a very rich mouthfeel. It's on the creamy side. It's very soft. It's not particularly full though. It's not a chewy bourbon. And so I'm going to call this medium, I guess. Uh, I also consistently get notes of cinnamon and leather. Now, full disclosure here on the leather note. My very first taste of Old Forester several years ago, I found leather, or I thought I did. And so at this point, every time I taste an Old Forester product, I find leather. So I'm not sure if it's actually there or my mind is telling my taste buds it should be and making it up. My wife says I'm crazy. So you take it from there, guys. Again, as it sets in the glass, I get notes of dark cherry, some dark fruit perhaps, but also some butterscotch. It gets kind of butterscotch feeling right there in the middle of the tongue. There's also some hints of light mint. It's not menthol and it's not spearmint or peppermint. It's just a light mint taste. For the finish, it's nice and long finish. It really warms the throat, warms the chest. And despite the 100 proof, there's some white pepper there, sure. But it turns slightly sweet at the very end. And so at the very, very end, it gets a little sweet kick. And I hesitate to say, but it's almost a cherry flavor again. So my takeaway, this is just a nice bourbon. Has a little bit of something for everyone. It has plenty of traditional notes to entice those people who really like the traditional bourbon profile. It's got the caramels. It's got those brown sugars. But it has also got enough unique flavors, the mint, the butterscotch, the leather, that I think experienced drinkers are enticed to try it to kind of figure it out. The price is also pretty spectacular. This is a mid $20 bottle, okay? Mid 20s. And it tastes enough like their Whiskey Row series that you're getting a really good bargain. Mid 20s, let's say the Old Forester 1897 bottled in bond. So it's 100 proof Old Forester 1897. It's in the mid 40s, low 50s. So this is quite the value. So as a daily drinker, this is a great bourbon. As a mixing bourbon, this is going to stand up really well in cocktails with that 100 proof. And in fact, the other really cool thing about this particular bottle is this is the other official drink of the Kentucky Derby. Brown Forman sponsors the Kentucky Derby with their product Woodford Reserve and with Old Forester's signature 100 proof. This is what they use to make their mint juleps at Churchill Downs in Kentucky. So how am I going to rate this tonight? For the price and the taste, I really want to rate this 4 stars. I'm not a huge fan of the mint, and I would like to mark it down for that. But that mint comes and goes. It's not always there as I taste. So I think I'm going to stick with my original 4-star rating for Old Forester's Signature 100 Proof. It's a good bourbon, and it's probably for the mid $20 range. You should find a place on your shelf when you want something a little out of the ordinary. Is this a quality, absolute, great, every day, this is a special drink? No, it's not. But it's a good, solid bourbon at a good, solid price. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's my take on Old Forester Signature 100 Proof. I hope everybody's well, of course, staying safe, and peace and happy pours.